Welcome to today's live stream. I'm going to get started in about a minute and I'm going to let everybody know that the stream is going on. Okay, everybody knows that the live stream is getting ready to start. And this one is going to be about the war that has been declared on heterosexual black men. Now, this war has been going on for at least a century, I believe, as it relates to heterosexual black men. But we've seen an escalation in this war on black men in the last, I'd say, about decade or so. Now, this war on heterosexual black men was declared by your white supremacists right after the Civil War because most of your white supremacists feared having to compete with heterosexual black men. So they started waging a war on your heterosexual black men in an effort to starting out by demonizing black men and saying things in their propaganda like, oh, your black man is lazy, your black man is incompetent, your black man is incapable of competing on the same level as white men. And they did that in propaganda pieces like what they did in their media by creating these caricatures like the coon, like the brute, and like your gollywog. These images were designed to show that a black man had lower value in society than a white man, and it was designed to push and promote a narrative to show that your black man was someone who should not be trusted. Your black man is not someone you should care for, and your black man has no value and should be seen as less than a white man. So this war on heterosexual black men, this has been going on for a good century and a half or so, and it's been pushed and promoted all throughout our mainstream media as the idea to, again, keep people thinking that the black man is less than. And again, the reason why they want to declare a war on the heterosexual black man is because the heterosexual black man represents direct competition to mainstream white society. And because he represents direct competition, they want to find a way to discredit the competition, and two, eliminate the competition. And they start that again with the propaganda campaigns that they use to demonize black men. So that started in the days after the Civil War with the coon and the brute. And then later on, as we started to see black men rise during the period of the Reconstruction, what black men were doing was they were refuting a lot of these narratives because we started to see black men doing things like owning businesses and running for political offices. And when we started to see black men doing this, it proved that all of the narratives and propaganda that white supremacists wanted to promote about black men, not to be true. And that's where we started to see the rise of the Ku Klux Klan, because these Ku Klux Klansmen and the white supremacists behind them, they were angry that black men were proving the narratives presented about them to be wrong. And they were upset that these narratives were being proven wrong, because these narratives prevented them from having their smooth world. And the smooth world is paramount to this whole war campaign, because in order for the white supremacist to have the smooth world, he needs the black man to be at the bottom of the world. In order for his world to be a perfect place, heterosexual black men need to be at the bottom of the world, right under pet dogs. And they need to be out there in these low-level jobs, literally begging and scraping for an existence. And that's the only way most white supremacists feel comfortable with the idea of a heterosexual black man. Now, in order for this war to be waged, you not only need white supremacists to believe in these ideals, you also need black people to go along with it. And sadly, when it comes down to a lot of black people, they also buy into the ideas regarding heterosexual black men. And you have your black woman, in many cases, she is bought into these false ideas regarding heterosexual black men. And then you get these beta males who follow and also believe these ideas about heterosexual black men. And they believe in those ideas because they want acceptance into the white man's smooth world, and they want to find a way to be approved by white people. So that's why they'll go along with these ideas about heterosexual black men being the dangerous and being monsters. They'll go along with the demonization, but the actual thing that makes heterosexual black men a threat to white supremacy is, one, the fact that your black man, heterosexual black man, is a direct competitor to white supremacy. And as a direct competitor to white supremacy, he presents a person who will compete with white supremacists for resources. And if he can create businesses, he can create a platform that will allow him to not only have a platform to compete for resources, but he will create an economic system that will take resources away from white people, and he will create an economic system that will distribute and allocate resources fairly and justly to black people. This is the thing that they fear about heterosexual black men, is they are a direct economic threat to white supremacy, and they are a direct economic threat to white people's smooth world. Because if you have black people that you have to compete with, that means you can't be comfortable. Because with most white people, what makes them extremely comfortable is the fact that they know that they don't have to compete. And that's why we're having this man crisis right now, is a lot of these white males, they're used to being in this smooth world where everybody is in their place. They don't have to compete with them. And now they're in a world that has changed. And that's why a lot of these men are malfunctioning and falling apart, because a lot of them, they now have to actively compete. And they're not used to doing that. But when it comes down to heterosexual black men, the thing that terrifies them is seeing heterosexual black men rise, and seeing these heterosexual black men rise to the occasion and get up to the point where they can compete. Because, one, that means that their smooth world is completely disrupted, and they are never going to be on top as related to their not only their physical state, but their mental state. But it also means that they can no longer take their lives for granted, and they can't take things in their lives for granted. So a heterosexual black man, he is extremely dangerous to white supremacists for the reasons of, one, economic competition, and two, he is a direct refutation of all of the propaganda narratives that white supremacy pushes and promotes regarding the black image. Because when you see a heterosexual black man like myself walking down the street with a full-time job or a business, he is a direct refutation of all the stereotypes and ideas that white supremacists go out here and push and promote regarding black people. So all those ideas they have regarding black people, they are all completely refuted when you see a heterosexual black man who is out here and he is working full time. He has and he is and he's out here, or he has a business. And the thing that really terrifies white supremacy is seeing that heterosexual black man with a family. And the heterosexual black man with a family, that is the scariest thing to most of these white supremacists out here. Because when you see a heterosexual black man who has a family, one, that proves that the black man is heterosexual. Two, it proves that the black man has core values and is getting ready to teach those core values to his wife. And three, it means that that heterosexual black man is the head of his family and is taking over the head of his family and is presenting himself as a leader and an authority figure. And these are, and the fourth, he is also showing that he can be a father to his children. And that last part is the part that terrifies white supremacists the most about heterosexual black men, is that when you see that black man as a father, he is providing a model for manhood in his home, and he's providing a model for manhood in his community. And he is getting ready to be that model for manhood that shows leadership in his community. And this is the thing that truly terrifies white supremacists, because when you see this black man as the head of his household, this is a man who is getting ready to take control of his community, and he is getting ready to take charge of his community. And if you have a group of these men in your community, guess what? They are going to set a tone in their community. They're going to set a standard in their community, and they are going to establish a standard for living, and they're going to maintain a quality of life. And this is the thing that truly terrified white supremacy about towns like Rosewood, and terrified them about towns like Black Wall Street, especially because your Black Wall Street was an iconic representation of what can happen when black people are left to their own devices. When a black man, heterosexual black man, is in control of his community, your Black Wall Street represented, one, your black man it was capable of creating an entire community all by himself without any sort of white interference or white support from people like your white liberals. And two, it was proved that your black man was capable of leading and controlling that community. And three, he was capable of creating a high quality of life for the people in that community. So Black Wall Street, the reason why it was destroyed was because this was a complete refutation of the narrative against heterosexual black men. And this whole town showed that if you left your heterosexual black man alone, your heterosexual black man was capable of being on the same level as a white man. And this is what terrifies white people about seeing heterosexual black men. It terrifies them to see the idea of a heterosexual black man being on the same level, because they have been so used to having this unequal playing field where they've always had the benefit. They've never really had to really compete in any sort of serious competition in anywhere. I mean, they're used to dominating everyone, but when you have to deal with fair and balanced competition, this is what scares your white supremacists, because they know that they got most of the things that they received in this world from lying, stealing, and cheating. And here is a black man coming in fair and square to compete with them. And this is the thing that truly terrifies your white supremacists as related to heterosexual black men. Now, these days, over the last 50 years, we've started to see this war on heterosexual black men start to ratchet it up. And we started to really see it in the 1970s ratchet up with the with Alice Walker's book, The Color Purple. Now, the feminist movement, they had been going out of their way to demonize black men, and they started a propaganda campaign with the mainstream media trying to promote these stereotypes about black men, like these pimps and like these shiftless black men. And again, that was propaganda designed to demonize the black man, to show that he was supposed to be some sort of monster, even though in the 1960s and the 1970s, we had intact families until the feminist movement came along, telling black women they could be just like white women, and white liberal politicians telling the lie that if you want to get this welfare, you have to get rid of the father in the home. What they wanted to do was tell you, okay, if you want my welfare, which will provide you with a stable income, you have to take this father out of the home. And they did that to undermine the black community's economic base. Now, when it came down to black men worked, but they worked in a lot of low-level jobs because a lot of the racists would not let a heterosexual black man be employed at the job because, again, your white men did not want to compete with your black men for resources and jobs. And two, you had a lot of these white racists in these jobs who feared the idea of these black men being in the office around these white women. Now, they feared that if these black men came into the office around their white women, these white women would be so enticed by them. But the truth is, most black men go out here and they marry black women. And this was, again, more false ideas created by your white supremacists and your female white supremacists, known as your feminists. They wanted to create this monster idea about the black man. And that's where we got the pimp from, which is another variation of the black brute. And this idea of this shiftless, no good, trifling black man, which was pushed in a lot of the blaxploitation films of the 1970s and a lot of media in the 1970s, because it was passive aggressive, and it was passive in that, yes, we were starting to see more images of black people in film and television, but aggressive in that it was promoting stereotypes that go back to the old days of the antebellum South and the days of your Jim Crow. And they were all about promoting the idea that black men were incapable, black men were irresponsible, and black men were not capable of competing if given an opportunity on the same level as white men. And that was further reinforced by your Alice Walker in the extremely misandristic book, The Color Purple. Now, The Color Purple is a milestone book because your Alice Walker's Color Purple, when it came out in the late 70s, early 80s, it was designed to demonize black men. And the whole premise of the book was designed to demonize black men and promote the idea that black men were these brutes, black men were these sexual deviants, and black men were these child molesting monsters. And the entire movie is pure propaganda. The book itself is pure propaganda. And your Alice Walker, she has had an extremely negative influence on black people. And she came into the college system, and she was the one who led to the indoctrination of a lot of the misandry we have going on here in America, because it was her. She came in first with bringing back the work of Zora Neale Hurston, and she manipulated the work of your Zora Neale Hurston. The book, Their Eyes Were Watching God, she wrote an analysis that was wrong and taught this analysis to children as young as the 6th grade. And in her analysis, she wanted to demonize heterosexual black men and indoctrinate that idea in children's mind. Now, in your Alice Walker's analysis and interpretation, which is taught all throughout in public schools, she teaches that Janie Crawford was the victim of three heterosexual black male predators. Your Logan Killick's an old sexual deviant, which is the start for the propaganda. Then we have your simp coming in. I forget his name. Then you have the other guy, your Virgil T. Cake Woods, who's a no good, trifling black man. And all three of them are supposed to be the ones who were supposed to be responsible for Janie Crawford being in a bad condition. However, that's not the true case of the book. If you take a critical analysis of the book, you will see the foundation of Janie Crawford's dysfunction. It all comes from the foundation of her coming from this single mother household, which she was raised in by her grandmother, a single mother household which started from the rape of her grandmother by a white man and by her daughter being raped by a white man. So when you look at Their Eyes Are Watching God, which is taught in public schools, we got a miseducation thanks to your Alice Walker, and that started a lot of young black girls down the road to hating black men and seeing heterosexual black men as monsters. And that was the foundation for a lot of miseducation, which further was reinforced once she released the book, The Color Purple. And then this book got a National Book Award, which, once it got validated by white people, began to make black people believe that, oh, this book was something we needed to read. But this book was about promoting anti-heterosexual black male misandry as a social norm. And the movie The Color Purple further promoted this anti-heterosexual black male misandry as a social norm. Now, most people, what they don't know about your Alice Walker is that she was a hardcore black feminist, and your Alice Walker was married to a white man. So I found a lot of things questionable about your Alice Walker, and she's the one who promoted a lot of the misandry in public schools and promoted ideas against black men. Now, the other woman who was another general in this war against heterosexual black men during the 1980s was your Oprah Winfrey. Now, your Oprah Winfrey, she was a major general in waging war against the heterosexual black man, and she was the one who went out here and waged a national campaign to demonize heterosexual black men on her Oprah Winfrey show back in the 1980s. Always on her Oprah Winfrey show, we always saw your no good, trifling, lazy black man, and we saw your black man who was not taking care of his family. And this was the idea they wanted to go out here and promote regarding black men. And they wanted to promote this idea because they did not, again, want to see black men competing on the same level as white men. Because if you continue to promote propaganda against heterosexual black men, then what happens is people start imbibing these ideas about heterosexual black men, and they start believing those ideas. And this belief system is one of the main reasons why so many heterosexual black men have a hard time in this world, because people have been imbibing these ideas about heterosexual black men for over 40 years. They've been buying into these ideas about heterosexual black men for over 40 years. And they believe that this is what a heterosexual black man is supposed to be. You had people, again, like your Alice Walker and your white feminists and your black feminists pushing propaganda. Then you had Oprah Winfrey reinforcing propaganda. And then we had your NWA coming out with Straight Outta Compton, which was taken over by white liberals. They took a narrative and put it on that record, which was supposed to be about black male suffering in the West Coast. They turned it into a different narrative in their propaganda to, again, demonize black men and turn it into this thug culture. And when they did that, they escalated the war on black men in the 90s. And that war was about, again, putting an idea in people's heads about heterosexual black men. And that's why people see heterosexual black men as a danger. That's why they see heterosexual black men as a threat. And that's why they are terrified. That's why they all hate heterosexual black men. They got you believing that heterosexual black men are this major threat, but heterosexual black men, they are not a threat to anyone. When it comes down to heterosexual black men, all we want to do is just make a living. All we want to do is survive in the world. And all of that is what we try to do. It's impeded all because white supremacists want their smooth world and they don't want to compete in the real world with black men. Thank you, Black Panther 11, for the donation. I really appreciate it. I'm going to get to the chat in a minute, but I'm just trying to lay a breakdown of everything. I'm glad to see everybody's here. Rapper 10,000, Leah Thomas, Trex Manifest, D. Woodward, glad to see you here. And glad to see you, G. Thorough McScrooge, glad to see you here. Lion of MGTOW, glad to see you here. And Hey Spore Hacker, glad to see you here. Edward Gaines, glad to see you here. Paul, glad to see you here. Pro Man, glad to see you here. Hey Jabari, glad to see you here. Glad to see you here, Gene, Buddy Pond, Christopher, glad to see you here. But that's what they want to do, is they want to demonize black men, heterosexual black men, and make them to be the boogeyman and the bad guy because they can't compete with a heterosexual black man. They can't compete with a heterosexual brother. So that's why they want to make him the bad guy, because the great fear that your white supremacists and your white racists and even your everyday white man on white woman on the street have is that if black men start to excel on the level of someone like a Michael Jordan or a Michael Strahan or Mike Tyson, in that we become extremely excellent at what we do in the arena of business, the way they are in the arena of sports, what they fear is that they're going to lose control over the United States economic system. And that's why there were all these efforts made to undermine your black economy back in the 60s and the 70s, because if black people were to take a full advantage of their rights from the Civil Rights Act of 64 and the Voting Rights Act of 65, if they had that economic base of businesses, this is what they feared, that if we were to become as proficient and even excel like your Muhammad Ali at sports, if we came into the business arena with that type of tenacity and passion, this is what they fear, is that, oh, the black people are going to come in, they're going to create businesses, they're going to create economic structures, and they're going to create companies that are not only going to be as equal to ours, but maybe even better than ours, and they're going to take over competitively. And this is the thing that terrified white folks. And this is why they wanted to divide and conquer by getting black women in the feminist movement and establish the welfare state to keep the black community codependent on white supremacy for economic resources. They wanted to keep the black community dependent, and the only way to keep them codependent on that welfare state was by demonizing the heterosexual black man on things like your media, where they showed you these pimps, they showed you these hustlers, when in actuality, we had a lot of black men. They were working at full-time jobs. They weren't working the greatest full-time jobs, but they had jobs. And a lot of the brothers who had civil service jobs, like garbage men, mailmen, and police officer, they were living a little better because they had a stable job, but they didn't want to put those type of images out there because they wanted to push this narrative of demonizing the black man. And in the 70s and then later on in the 80s, as we started to see a lot of black men going into college, that's when we saw your Oprah Winfrey coming in, waging this campaign against heterosexual black men, a campaign that was ratcheted up with the advent of gangster rap, which was also designed to demonize heterosexual black men as these so-called thugs and gangsters and give them an image that they could get indoctrinated in because they didn't like the idea of people like your Robert Guillaume playing Benson, who was getting ready to run, who ran for governor in the last season of Benson. They didn't like the idea of the Cosby Show, which was showing you a black man being a responsible leader and head of his family, nor did they like the idea of Bill Cosby's A Different World, which showed you Dwayne Wayne, a responsible black man, or a show that showed you black people going to college, or your Family Matters, or your Fresh Prince, which shows you, again, responsible black males in charge. Uncle Phil was running his household, and seeing those images that made those people white supremacists, and even some of the supporters of white supremacy in the black community, like your Oprah Winfrey and many other these sellouts, it made them uncomfortable. So that's where we got this whole gangster rap thing, where that they were coming out here talking about, oh, we want to promote this idea because we want to have this idea out here for the younger kids to imbibe. And once those kids out here, they started imbibing this whole thing as related to this so-called thug culture, that's where we started to see the continuing escalation in this war on heterosexual black men. Because what they wanted to do was get the kids, the younger kids, to start believing in this gang stuff and this thug stuff. But all of that was white social constructs. White mainstream media created the idea of the thug. The thug does not come from black people. It does not come from heterosexual black men. It does not come from any home with a father in it or male authority figures. Because when you have a home with male figures in it, the boys learn a model for manhood from those men. And he learns how to be a man who learns how to go out here and work, because the father is going to work, and then the father teaches the sons how to go out here and work, and he teaches them how to go out here and develop male life skills and survival skills. But your thug and your gangster, they come from white media set the same way the pimp comes from white media. And the stereotype is designed to create the idea that, oh, your black man is lazy, your black man is incompetent, your black man is this criminal, and the only way for him to survive is to be this criminal. And that's what they want to promote as the idea for black people in mainstream America, because they don't want to compete with brothers on the job. They don't want to compete with brothers because many of these mediocre white people out here, they fear that if this black man comes in and starts excelling, he's going to get the promotion, he's going to get paid, and he's going to get rich. And in some cases, they fear that he may even stop working at that company and create his own company. So that's the other thing that really terrifies white people about the heterosexual black man, is that if this man, again, gets on this job, then he's going to really take things to another level that they can't compete with. So that's why they came up with this thug, because they didn't want black boys to start thinking about things like getting an education or focusing on putting education first. They didn't want to go out here and have brothers out here, thinking about things about their future, because if they can get that father out of the home and they can get that boy to start thinking about being a consumer like his mother and only thinking about buying sneakers, buying the latest clothes, and trying to impress women, get him on a road to gynocentrism. They don't have to compete with that young black boy, and they don't have to worry about that young black boy growing into a black man who is capable of going out here and building something. Because if he's so busy consuming, then they don't have to worry about him producing. What's up, Chris Brown? Chris is the creator of the Omega Black manga, and he's a young brother trying to build a black manga for everyone. And it's a great manga. So that's one I really urge you guys to go out here and support. It's on Amazon right now, and it's in paperback and ebook. So that's a brother out here building, and now I'm glad to have him on the stream. But when it comes down to white supremacy, they don't want to see black men going out here to build. They don't want to see black men, again, building, because when black men build, they compete, and they don't want any black men competing. They want men consuming. And that's why they want to wage war against heterosexual black men and promote ideas these days as related to homosexualizing black men. Now, this started back in the 90s, where we went from demonizing the black man to effeminizing the heterosexual black man. They wanted to push the idea of effeminizing the black man. And thank you, SB, for the donation. They effeminizing the black man, because that's where we started to see things like on shows like In Living Color and where we saw Jamie Foxx in the dress, and we started to see all these black men in dresses. And instead of us seeing this black man as a bad guy, they started sowing the seeds of pushing the idea of this feminized black man. So they wanted to put the idea of this black man in dresses. And again, this was about waging war on the black heterosexual black male image. So because every one of these black male entertainers we see, almost all of them have been wearing these dresses. And this, I believe, is not something that was done as a part of comedy. Like, I have a lot of family members believing, oh, this was just done for comedy because, oh, you're Tony Curtis and your Jack Lemmon did it in the movie Some Like It Hot. But when we look at all the roles that those white men played, most of the time they were playing masculine males. And even when they were putting on the dresses, there was still masculinity in them. But with this one, I can start to see where they were trying to emasculate the male. And I started to see this around 2010 or so, 2011, it was 2011. I wrote an entire blog on it talking about the idea of black men in dresses and how it wasn't entertainment, it was emasculation, because I started to see almost every black male that was presented on my screen was in some sort of dress. I mean, we started to see that in the 90s with Wanda on Jamie Foxx. We started to see it with the Wayans brothers. They were playing the white chicks. We started to see Big Mama. We started to see your Shanae. And this was it. I started to see it's like this wasn't any sort of comedy as I saw it. I saw that these white racists were trying to play a joke on us, and the joke was at our expense. Now, Dave Chappelle, he started to see it too, and that's why he left the Chappelle show, because he started to see what they wanted to do with black males, in that they kept trying to put them in these dresses, and they always wanted to put this black man in a dress. And I started to look at the pattern. I said, you know, this is some sort of social engineering, because what they want to do is change the idea in people's minds from the idea of a black man being a male and having male anatomy and presented as masculine. So the thug was designed to make him look like a monster, but this female was designed to effeminize the black man. And they wanted to effeminize the black man because they wanted to show that the black man was someone you did not need to respect, someone you did not need to regard, and someone you did not need to see as valuable. Because in most relationships, the female is seen as lower, and they wanted to put the black man in a position where he could be seen as far lower. Now, the thug, he was basically a child But when you effeminize a man, you take all of his masculine value away. So that's what they wanted to do by putting this black man in a dress, was saying that, oh, he's not a man I need to take seriously. He's not a person I need to take seriously. He is somebody who is basically a complete joke. And that's what the whole idea of feminizing the black man was. And that's what they wanted to do from the 90s up until about the 2010s. And now, in that we are near the end of the 2010s, we've gone from feminizing the black man into homosexualizing the black man. So we've gone from demonization to emasculation to feminization to homosexualization. And again, this is about destroying heterosexual black men, because if you have the man that now he's feminine and now he's homosexual, what they're doing is making it where people don't see the black man as someone who is attractive in a heterosexual relationship. And that's what they want to do with this mainstream media now. That's why we see all these really effeminate images, and we see things like men kissing men, because they want to push the idea of the homosexual black man, because they don't want the idea of a black man being out here as a strong male figure, because again, the strong male figure represents competition to white supremacy. Whenever white supremacists see a black man out here who is well dressed in a suit and a tie, or is dressed very in male clothes, that makes them extremely uncomfortable. That makes them uneasy seeing those strong black masculine men, because those black men represent competition and they represent leaders in their community. So when you see a strong heterosexual black man, this is what makes white supremacists extremely uncomfortable. And they want to get that image out of the black community. And they also want to keep that black man from growing, because if you see a heterosexual black man out here and he's got his black woman on his arm and he's got his black family together, this is something that scares a lot of white supremacists, especially when you see that man with children and being a father in the home, because the children, they represent the idea that the father has already now, he is now reproduced, and now he is teaching values to the next generation. And that's the thing that terrifies all of these white folks out here, seeing that black man with a father as a father, being that head of the family, being that head of household. And that's the thing that's why they had to wage war on your heterosexual black man. Now, your heterosexual black man, he has it very hard out here, because he faces not only a threat from white supremacy, but he faces threats from people who get their living from white supremacy. And one of the people who get a major living from white supremacy is a lot of your black females out here who have bought into the concept of black feminism. Now, your black female back in the 60s, she was told that by the feminists that she could become the equal of a white woman. And that's why she threw in with it. And that's why she threw in with white liberal welfare policy. And a lot of them got jobs through affirmative action. And a lot of them get their bread buttered by your white supremacy. And whenever they see a heterosexual black man coming into the job market, this is what really upsets them, because this man represents someone who can upset their economics and upset their way of making money. Because when it comes down to your black female, she gets these jobs primarily because she fits in the box that white supremacy needs to maintain their false standard of affirmative action, because she's black and she's a woman. So they get to kill two birds with one stone. And your black female, she can get out here and be the enforcer of white supremacy. And then she can also teach the culture of white supremacy, because as the strong, independent black woman, she gets to be the one who gets all the benefits of white supremacy. And she can prove a statement to them that says, oh, there is no racism, and they get chances. So whenever they see a black man coming into a job, this is where they want to get him out of a job, because he is going to start taking resources out of the system and start building. I ran into that back 10 years ago when I was working at City College, and also when I was going to the hiring pools for these CUNY office jobs. And I started to see the HR brick wall, which was erected primarily with other black women. They go out here and they erect this wall because they don't want black men coming in, especially heterosexual black men, because heterosexual black men, they're going to go out here and they're going to start building, and they're going to start laying out a foundation for building wealth. So they don't want that out there. So the black women, because they get their bread buttered by white supremacy, they will go out here and make sure that black men don't get jobs, especially heterosexual black men. Now, they will let certain heterosexual black men come in because they also benefit white supremacy, and they will give black females a pass. And these guys are your simps, who they will sit there and spend money on the black women, and your manginas, because they will also spend money on women and they will pander to black women. And that's one of the reasons why they get a pass into the workforce, because they are going to continue contributing to white supremacy, and they're going to continue creating consumption of products. Because when it comes down to your beta males, all they're thinking about is getting the latest Jordans, getting a big screen TV, and having a car with the big rims in order to impress the black female, not understanding that this same black female is out here getting with these white men at this job, and they have no chance at all. These guys are not really interested in anything but getting with her. And then what happens is they get made a complete fool out of. And usually they either are trained to chase the black women, or they're trying to chase the white women. And that's why they are allowed an opportunity to come into the job market and work, like guys like your Barack Obamas and your Cory Bookers. Those guys are allowed in because they are no threat to white supremacy, whereas your heterosexual black man is not allowed in, because he's going to come in and start taking care of his own business and start working towards his own business. Now, the other person who is no threat to white supremacy is your gay black male. Now, your gay black male, white supremacy has no problem with him, because he's, one, again, going to be a consumer because he has a very effeminized mindset in some cases. And then two, they don't have a threat with him because he's not going to reproduce. So your gay black man, he's going to go out here and he's not going to father any children, and he's not going to teach any values to any children. Whereas if you have a heterosexual black man, that man is a threat to white supremacy because of his direct competition, him being heterosexual and getting out here and having relationships with women, him being a male who taught the culture of male leadership and male authority, him being taught the ability to want to be a father, and him understanding his role as a father under God's natural order. So as a man who understands his role as a father in God's natural order, this is a man who white supremacists, they are, especially the rich ones at the top, are terrified of, because if this man goes out here and gets married, this man goes out here and starts to have children, this man is going to start teaching values to his children, especially his son. And he's going to start teaching his son intangibles of manhood as related to discipline, as related to work ethic, and related to character. And these core values are going to help perpetuate the idea, the true idea of heterosexual black manhood and heterosexual black masculinity. And it's those ideas that they want to get rid of in the black community, because if you have your black woman who's out here being promiscuous, and you have the son out here who is learning codependency, which is what we're having right now. Because when you have males under gynocentric and female leadership, we have boys who don't understand how to be heterosexual black men. They only have a semblance of it because the mother is teaching the boy based on what she thinks she knows, but not what a man knows. Now, a heterosexual black man, he knows what a boy needs to do in order to survive in the world, and he knows how to teach the boy how to survive in the world. But the woman, she doesn't know how to do this. She thinks she does, but there are certain small life skills that only another black man can teach. And I've made videos about it, talking about the unwritten social rules for black men. And I've also talked about it in numerous blogs and books, like the most recent book I did, The Man Crisis. I talk about a lot of the life skills and survival skills a lot of males need to understand to go out into the world. And this book is on Amazon.com right now. You can pick this one up in paperback and ebook. You can also pick it up on Smashwords and the iBookstore. And I wrote this one because a lot of black males out there, they're not getting those male life skills because they don't have a father in the home, and they don't have a man to teach them the male life skills they need to survive in the world. And when it comes down to a lot of males out here today, they don't understand why the heterosexual black man has a target on his back. Because when you're a heterosexual black man, you have a target on your back, you are considered a threat, and you are behind enemy lines. And you have to learn certain survival skills out here when you're out here. And I did a whole video on that one as well, survival tips for black men out here, because as a man who had lost a job due to these white supremacists out here and these white supremacist supporters, like some of your black mammies out here and your manginas, I understand how dangerous it is out here, and that you need to have a plan in order to survive out here. So heterosexual black men, when there is a man around to sit down and talk to you, you understand you are at war. You understand you are out here, and you have to go out here and develop a survival plan for yourself, because the enemies are all around you. And with all these enemies around you, you have to have a plan in order to combat these enemies, because heterosexual black men, we are at war, and we have to understand we are at war every day. And there may be even enemies inside of your own home. So there's no real peace for a heterosexual black man out here, except for the peace that God gives you. And you have to go out here understanding that you're going to be going out to war almost every day. You're going to be getting at war with everyone around you, from your black woman to your beta males like your thugs, your gang members, and even your simps and manginas at work. All of these people, they have issues with heterosexual black men, because all these people really want brownie points with white supremacy, and they get brownie points with white supremacists because they can climb up this imaginary ladder to get the attention and approval of white people by going out here and destroying heterosexual black men. So for every heterosexual black man they destroy, they believe they are climbing up this imaginary ladder and getting brownie points with these white men, this imaginary white man who is inside of their mind. And they believe they're getting that because they destroyed this heterosexual black man. And this heterosexual black man, he represents a direct threat to your white supremacy. And he represents that direct threat because, again, it's the ideas that he represents. It's the idea that there is a black man who is on the same level as white people, and that this black man is ready to go to work. I'm getting ready. I'm just going to show you another book in a minute that I've written. But the whole idea is he represents ideas that white supremacy does not want perpetuated in society. So he represent when you have a heterosexual black man who is educated, capable, and self-aware, he is presenting ideas that are the ultimate and absolute terror to white supremacy. And I went in depth on this in a novel I did back in 2011 called The Temptation of John Haynes. Now, in the story, The Temptation of John Haynes, you have the John Haynes character who gets fired from his job by one of these black elitists. And the black elitist fires him not because he did a bad job, because he was doing an exceptional job. So he decides to fire him because he doesn't want to compete with him. And in the book, the devil decides to give John Haynes this job as a CEO. And he becomes the CEO of this corporation, Morris Phillips. And the devil is trying to destroy him, so he sends a she-demon to seduce him. And in the book, we start to see the John Haynes character take the lead in his life and show the power of what a black man can do if placed in a CEO position. And again, when it comes down to the devil, he wants to destroy heterosexual black men because he does not want you to see heterosexual black men as leaders, competent, or capable. And this is what they want to do. And I wanted to talk about that in depth in The Temptation of John Haynes, because the John Haynes character, when I originally designed him, I designed him to show that you're a black man, when he's given power, what he would be able to do. Because one of the things white supremacy wants to push in their narrative is that if you give a black man power, what he will do is he will go out here and destroy everything around him. And that was something they wanted to present in the movie Black Panther with the Killmonger character. Now, with the Killmonger character, they were taking a middle finger at black, heterosexual black men, because your Killmonger, who was supposed to have been growing up in the black community and was living with black people, he learned how to be just like the brothers out there. And what they were doing was putting a middle finger up at the brothers by saying that if this black man were given power, he would go out here and try to destroy the world around him. And that was nothing more than propaganda designed to present a negative image of black men and say that, oh, if we give this black man power, he's going to destroy the world around him. That was a white supremacist construct and a white supremacist concept based in fear of black men, and a fear that if black men were given power, what they would do is go out here and destroy the world around him. But in my book, The Temptation of John Haynes, I show you what happens when a black man is given power. When a black man is given power, he is going to go out here and look out for his community, and he's going to go out of his way to protect his community. Moreover, he's going to go out here and start building with brothers out here in order to not only maintain his community, but provide jobs for his community. And he's also going to protect the image of his community. And he's going to start making images to protect the image of the black man. And he's also going to go out here and try to protect the black woman, which in the story, the East Team character was supposed to represent the idea of the whole demonized black woman and how she is bought into all of these false ideas that the devil has put into her mind, because her mind, her self-image, and her self-worth, they are really a big mess in The Temptation of John Haynes in the beginning. But as she starts to see John's model and example of manhood, she starts to make changes in her life, and she starts to understand her role as a black woman and how she needs to help John Haynes towards the end of the story. And it leads to a very powerful climax where your Eastine, on revealing herself to John, we start to see her make this change that moves her life forward as they start to work together as a black man and a black woman. Let's see what's going on with this chat. And that's why I wrote the book, and that's why I urge you guys to really pick this one up, and because this is a book that's going to change the way you see black men and the black male image, because it's something that we need to really see, because when we have this heterosexual black man, there's just a war against him. And I wanted to really get people to understand that what would happen when you give black men power. Now, there's another book I did called The Man Who Rules the World, which is a sequel to Temptation of John Haynes, where we see what happens again when a black man is given power. But the thing that I did when it comes down to black men, they really don't want you to see black men as responsible, capable leaders, or anybody who is competent enough to do for self. Now, another book that I wrote was The Isis Bride of Dracula, where I had John Haynes make a statement that really relates to the whole war on heterosexual black men, because when in the book he says he's the scariest MF in the room, and truly the scariest MF in the room is the heterosexual black man, especially the heterosexual black man who is educated, self-aware, and is ready to take care of business in his community. So that is the scariest individual in the room to white supremacy and the satanic institutions of your white supremacy. When you see a heterosexual black man, this is the thing that really terrifies them, because they want that man is not following the narrative of white supremacy. He is not supporting the narrative of white supremacy. He is out here building his own narrative, building his own ideas, and creating his own image of self. And that's one of the things I do with the SJS Direct Imprint, is try to change the image of black people by creating positive stories about the African American experience and showing you a true positive picture of heterosexual black men and heterosexual black masculinity. So when I write stories, I understand this war on heterosexual black men, and that's why I go out here and try to give you balanced, humanized images of black men in my stories, because I understand that in this media, what they want you to do is imbibe this media. And if you imbibe this media, what you're going to do is imbibe ideas and eat and digest ideas that are negative about black men. Now, I grew up as a kid, thank God, with Bill Cosby's and Robert Guillaume's and a lot of positive black media out there, because I grew up during the 80s and the early 90s, and seeing working class brothers out there on television and having a model for myself and my older brother and my father, that showed me models for manhood that I didn't appreciate as a kid, but now I'm older, I truly appreciate, because when you have those models for manhood, they help you understand your role as a man in God's natural order. Because in God's natural order, he knows the importance of heterosexual black men. He understands that in order for the world to continue to grow, you need to have heterosexual black men in it. And this war, it really undermines everything God created about the world. And that's what they want, white supremacy wants to do, because they want to be the ones on top, but they are really undermining all of God's work on earth and undermining all of God's order. Because if you go after one heterosexual man, then the other heterosexual men suffer as well. And that's what we're seeing also as they continue to ratchet up their campaign against heterosexual black men. We're starting to see in this phase where they're trying to homosexualize the black man, that it's starting to affect white men now too, because as they have gone out of their way to effeminize the black man, they have gone out of their way and homosexualize the black man. We're now starting to see a lot of these white males who were growing up in these single mother households. A lot of these guys, they can't function. That's where we get these omega males and soy boys out here, the omega males and beta males, participating in all these mass shootings, committing suicide, and winding up on drugs, because in their attempt to try to destroy the black man, they have now wound up starting the road to destroying themselves. And that's one of the that's one of the things that's happening to them as an indirect result of trying to wage war on us, is they have created a male who is inferior and incapable of doing God's work on earth. because your beta male and your omega male, they submit to female authority figures, and they don't understand concepts like male authority. They don't understand concepts like male socialization, nor do they understand concepts like male leadership or male power structure. So a lot of these males, they cannot go out here and do what heterosexual men can do, because heterosexual men have been socialized to understand their role in the world, their place in the world, and they've been socialized to understand what they need to do in order to take care of business in the world. And heterosexual black men, they understand what they need to do. And that's one of the things they do when they're the father in the home, is start to prepare their sons for and their daughters for survival. So those are two things that that a lot of boys aren't getting today. And that's all, again, due to this almost 40, 50 year or over 100 year war on heterosexual black men. This war is really messing up America, but nobody sees the big picture as related to things, because the reason why we have a man crisis, I believe, one of the core foundations of it, is this war on heterosexual black men, because they wanted to destroy the black man, and now we're starting to see the destruction of all men. And that's why we have a man crisis in this country right now, because everybody wants to try to make the black man into this monster, but the black man is not the monster. The heterosexual black man, he is someone who is out here trying to trying to live. He's trying to make a living, but his living is impeded by this social construct known as white supremacy, this lie that a lot of white people want to believe in, this covert contract that white people want to believe in, which is that white people are superior, white people are better, and white people are entitled to everything in this world, and they are entitled to have power and control over everything in this world. And this is the belief that your white supremacists have regarding the world. But this is a false construct. It's a complete lie. And it's something that is just not true. But they want to make it true. So they want to try to change the ideas of people in the world through social engineering, like this war on heterosexual black men. And they want to have you out here believing that this is true so that they can be on top. Unfortunately, over the last 50 years, the men that they have tried to create with the feminist movement and their compromise, these beta males, these omega males, and these soy boys, they cannot maintain this institution anymore. And that's why the whole institution is starting to struggle, because it was all based on a lie. And the whole thing is, if they can get the heterosexual black man out of the picture, they can go back to having their smooth world. But as these days, we're seeing that the world is becoming less and less smooth, because what's happening is this world that they tried to create, this imaginary world, is starting to fall apart, because you want to go after this heterosexual black man, but the whole thing is, it's just not working, because you need men to be men. And when you produce concepts like effeminization and homosexualization, that is going to destroy things as related to your overall structure, as related to manhood, because they've already destroyed the American family through things like no-fault divorce and promoting feminism. So we're starting to see the structures starting to fall apart. And this is one of the things that scares your white supremacists now. And that's one of the things that has them in abject terror now. But they don't understand, you did this by your own hand. It wasn't black folks that did this, because if you had left that black man alone during the Reconstruction and let him build, America would have been a lot better. America would have been a lot more competitive, because in a capitalist society, when there's competition, it makes things better, because competition is what allows things to grow. And this is something your white racist and white supremacist doesn't understand that when you have competition, competition allows everybody to thrive because it means that everybody has to step up. It means everybody has to do their best. And it means everybody has to persevere. And it means everybody has to push towards taking themselves to the next level. So that's one of the things that would have been beneficial to your white racist, but because your white racist is so caught up in his feelings and his insecurities, that's why he believes he has to go after this black man, because the black man is the one who carries the seed, and heterosexual black men, because they carry the seed, that's why we have this campaign to demonize them and this campaign to go out here and I think we got a troll. And they don't want them to be around because, again, they don't like the idea of the heterosexual black man being around because his seed is power, and anybody who gets his seed has power. So that's why they create all these ideas to declare this war on them. And this war has been ratcheting up over the last 50 years, as we've seen, because one of the things that scares them is seeing things like the Cosby Show back 30 years ago, seeing all these black men coming on these jobs, a lot of these black men buying homes, a lot of black men starting businesses, a lot of black men going out here and building, because that's terrifying to them, because they can't have their smooth world where all they have to do is show up and be white. So then they start seeing that black man enter the room. They know that it means you're going to have to step up your game. You're going to have to step up and really bring your A game to the thing. But they didn't want to bring their A game to the table. They just want to bring mediocrity. And that's one of the things that your white males, that's why they don't want heterosexual black men coming into the room. And that's why they have their enforcers in jobs. And that's why it's so hard for black men out here like myself to get jobs, because they want a certain type of black man on the job. They don't mind, again, your mangina, because your mangina is basically an Uncle Tom. He's a bootlicker, and he's super loyal to white supremacy. So they don't mind him being on the job. They don't mind your coon being on the job, because all he's there to do is make a bunch of jokes. And they don't mind your mammy being on the job, because your mammy is going to come in here and she's going to just, all she's going to do is deify and worship white men. And then she's going to enforce these policies that keep black men out of the job and keep them from competing with the white men. So she's going to be a gatekeeper. And that's why they keep her in the human resources department, to keep all of the educated professional black men out of the job. And they also have her around to go out here and make sure that any black men who are on the job aren't thinking about focusing on being a competitor. They just want she's just there to make sure that nobody's there that's going to be on top, because she's going to be the H nice in that job. And the other person that they want to have on the job is your workplace simp, because all your simp is going to do is he's going to spend most of his money on chasing the black women or chasing the white women in most cases. So they don't mind having those black people on the job. And usually when you see these people being promoted in mainstream media, like your Barack Obamas and many others, the main reason why they're there is because they, one, fit the narrative, two, they promote and perpetuate stereotypes, and three, they are no threat to white supremacy, and they are no threat to any sort of the economic structures of white supremacy. Same thing with your gay black male, which they're trying to promote. Your gay black male is not only no threat to white supremacy's economic base, but they will not go out here and reproduce black children who will then learn a culture of black pride or learn a culture of black empowerment. So they don't want that heterosexual black man there because of the things he represents, and also because of the things he will promote and perpetuate in a Black community and the standards he will establish in a Black community. And that was one of the reasons why they canceled the Luke Cage show in the second season, because Luke Cage in the second season was really starting to push and promote those ideas as related to heterosexual Black men. They pushed and promoted the idea of, one, your Luke Cage being a leader, and then two, your Luke Cage being an authority figure, and then three, your Luke Cage being the man who's going to go out of his way to protect his community. They didn't like the ideas that were being promoted in the show, and I believe that was the core reason why your Luke Cage wound up getting canceled, because your Luke Cage, he, at the end of the season, he had become the power man, and the image of that Black man wearing that suit and tie, ready to take care of business, putting the Black woman in his place in the final episode, in that last episode, in the final scenes. That was the image that terrified your Disney, and they didn't like having that image in that show. And that's one of the core reasons why I believe your Luke Cage wound up getting canceled, and we wound up with your Black Panther being pushed, because your Black Panther was pushing the idea of this emasculated heterosexual Black man, because your T'Challa was completely emasculated, and the women were running him and telling him what to do. He was not leading the way Luke Cage was. And you also had your Killmonger, who was basically your angry Black man who's going to go out here and destroy the world because he wanted really white acceptance and white attention. And again, both of those images, those were what white people felt comfortable with. But what really scares white people is a guy like a Luke Cage, or more so, a guy like a John Haynes. A guy like a John Haynes, a Black man running a corporation. This is the ultimate image that terrifies white people: a heterosexual Black man who is running a major corporation, a man who is in charge of his home, a man who has the support of his Black woman, and is starting to build a platform in his community, providing resources and jobs to his people. This is an idea and a story that when it comes down to white supremacy, they have a lot of, they're terrified of. They're terrified of the idea of a Black man ready to take care of business in his community. So they don't really want you to see that image of a Black man who was ruling his world, because he has control over self. And because he has control over himself, he can take charge in his community. He can take leadership role in his community. And he is ready to protect and preserve his community and teach those values. And then even more so, start teaching those values to the young brothers on the street and on the job, and also teach those values to his children. So those are all the reasons why there is this war on your heterosexual Black man, because the heterosexual Black man's narrative is one that runs counter to white supremacy's narrative, a narrative that teaches you that you have to follow white people and get white acceptance, because when you have a heterosexual Black man, when he is fully self-aware, like I did with the John Haynes character, he is teaching the idea that Black people do not need white acceptance. They do not need white approval. They do not need white validation. They can find validation and approval from the living God, and they can find value in self because they are looking to God for their value and not some false God known as the white man. So I'm going to look through some of the chats. Yeah, it's a part of divide and conquer. Yeah, I saw what happened with Jussie Smollett, and yeah, I saw that. And that was a major set. That was really sad to see. I mean, that showed that. But they pushed Jussie Smollett because he is promoting again the narratives that white supremacy wants us to see, which is the gay black man, and they need him out here to push that narrative for their agenda. They need the idea of your gay black man out there, so they're going to give him a pass because he's doing their job. He's on a major show like Empire. He's talking about how he's openly gay, so that makes him very. That's where they let him go. But if he was a heterosexual man, he would have wound up in jail. And that's one of the reasons why they want to go out here against Michael Jackson now, is because for Michael Jackson, he did something that white supremacy truly hates, is that he beat them at their own game. Michael Jackson, when he bought that catalog of the Beatles, he got one over on Paul McCartney because Paul McCartney wanted him to buy the catalog for him, but he bought it for himself. And that was like a body blow to white supremacy. The idea that this black man was going to go out here and he was going to take power and control. So that's why they really hate Michael Jackson, because he was starting to flex his economic muscles and start building wealth for himself without thinking about getting white people's attention or approval. So when he bought that catalog of the Beatles, that was like the punch in the gut. And the same thing with Bill Cosby when he tried to buy NBC, and then also when he did the pound cake speech, making a speech against your black pathology and black victimization, the narratives your white supremacists need in order to push in the black community. They need to push this idea that black people are victims of an evil white man. So your Bill Cosby was trying to get black people to start taking responsibility for themselves. So they wanted to try to take him out, and they did take him out with the help of your Uncle Toms, like your Hannibal Buress, who wanted to get himself some crumbs at the master's table. He wanted to go get himself some change off the master's table. So he wanted to get that, and he threw another brother under the table in order to go out here and advance himself at the expense of Mr. Cosby. And it showed how cowardly your white supremacists were. They wanted to destroy your Bill Cosby, all because he was out here pushing a agenda that was actually the truest in pro-blackness, and was pushing an agenda to get brothers and sisters back up thinking about themselves. And yeah, Herman Cain suffered the same fate, because Herman Cain also was talking about, a narrative that was outside of pathology and victimization. And that's where they brought in that light-skinned woman to talk about a scandal on him, because that was just before he started to really gain some traction. Was he was out here trying to do what needed to be done. And he was talking about doing things, and that was one of the reasons why they took out Herman Cain, because Herman Cain actually was a lot stronger than your Barack Obama, but because your racists wanted to put a white man in top in the Republican Party, they wanted to take this black man out. But any black man who's heterosexual, again, they just don't like the idea of them having power. And again, that's why they also took out your Herman Cain, because he was a heterosexual black man. And here was a heterosexual black man promoting conservative ideas and promoting core values. And that ran counter to white supremacy, which makes the point that always that either black men are stupid, black men are lazy, black men are incompetent, and that when you have a black man out here who is well-spoken, highly intelligent, this all runs counter to what white supremacy wants to perpetuate and promote than what they promote in the mainstream. And again, they do this because they want to see the black man at the bottom of the world. So they have no problem with people like your Lil Waynes, your Cardi B's, your Jussie Smollett's, because they are all doing what white supremacy wants them to do. They want these clowns to be at the bottom of the world. They want them to continue promoting these bottom-feeding ideas, and they don't want to see black people, especially heterosexual black men, rising to another level. Rapper 10,000 makes a very good point. Feminists hate straight men and they want to promote gay men. Yeah, they want to do that because they want to have power over men. Because you have to understand that your feminist is a female white supremacist. And as a female white supremacist, she's actually a lesbian. She hates men and she wants to promote gay men because she believes gay men will be more submissive to her because they want to aspire to be like women and they submit to female authority figures. But your feminist is also a racist, and she's one of the biggest racists in the room because she envies black masculinity, she envies black manhood, and she envies heterosexual black masculinity and manhood because she knows that this is a power she cannot have and it's a power she cannot achieve. So, because she cannot achieve this power, that's why she wants to destroy heterosexual black men. And that's why she wants to destroy heterosexual black masculinity and heterosexual black manhood because she knows she can never achieve it. She can never accomplish it. So she wants to try to find a way to destroy it. And she gets that support in destroying it from your beta white males and your black females who believe that the feminist is a white, believe because the feminist is a white woman, everything she's saying is true. But in actuality, when it comes down to the feminist, this is the mistake your black women make. I also make this point in my ebook, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single. Your feminist is a lesbian. So every time a black woman aspires to be like a feminist, she is actually following a mentally ill pathology, which is she's trying to be like this white woman, but the feminist is a woman who is trying to be like a white man. So what happens is she's trying to combat. That's why your black woman is combative and argumentative because she's trying to be like this feminist who is a lesbian, but in actuality is just a woman trying to be a man. And that's what leads to a lot of confusion in a lot of today's sisters because they bought into these ideas from this feminist. Edek, I don't know about Jay-Z. Jay-Z is a sellout, and P. Diddy, those guys, I don't think that they present the image of a strong heterosexual black man. When I think of heterosexual black men, I don't know about P. Diddy and Idris Elba. I usually think of guys like your back in the day, your Bill Cosby's, your Robert Guillaume's. Well, there was a couple of other guys. James Avery's. The guy who played Cisco, I forget his name. Avery Brooks. Those are masculine black men. And then there's guys like Jim Kelly's and your Fred Williamson in his prime. But I think of men who are fathers. I think of men who are truly masculine and men who do not make any sort of compromise whatsoever. Men who are comfortable in their manhood, men who are secure in their manhood, and men who are not going to compromise their manhood for any sort of white male approval or white male attention. So for me, is a definition of a heterosexual, strong heterosexual black man. And that's the type of image that, again, they don't want in mainstream media. Like, for example, your Man Called Hawk back in the day, that was a heterosexual black man. I mean, that was as manly as it got in the 80s. And they took that show off in less than a year, talking about low ratings. But again, it's the ideas that they were promoting on that show, or shows like Your Family Matters, where we saw Carl Winslow. That was another man, but they had these simps in there like your Eddie and your Steve Urkel. But they don't like the idea of guys like that, or your James Evans. They don't like that. They don't like those ideas of black men, or even the father on Sister Sister. I mean, you see those type of men, and it makes again white supremacists uncomfortable, because these are men showing a model of manhood where they are leaders, they are authority figures, they are business people, they are heads of household, they are taking care of business. And that's the thing that they don't want you to see, because when you see that man, that's something that it gives you something to look up to. It gives you something to admire. It gives you something to say, that's a man I want to be like. And when you see that type of man, it makes you think about taking pride in yourself, and it makes you want to be a better, and when you're growing up as a boy, grow up to become a better man. So that's the type of man that most people don't want you to. That's why they're not promoting him in mainstream media. And when they do come out, like your Luke Cage, they try to find ways to get him off the air as soon as possible. Because if you watch that Luke Cage season 2 on Netflix, you are definitely going to see a true masculine heterosexual black man. And that's what your mainstream media doesn't want you to see. What they want you to see are these soft males like Black Panther, because a soft male, he's, again, looking for others for approval instead of trying to do the work that God wants him to do. And he's not trying to be the head that God wants him to be. So, yes, Cliff, this is psychological warfare that's being played on Black people. And the psychological warfare is being done so that you will sit there and think, oh, the heterosexual Black man is your enemy. Your heterosexual Black man is a danger. The heterosexual Black man is this menace. And this heterosexual Black man is so dangerous that we need to be terrified of him. And that's not, again, not the case at all. Your heterosexual brother is like myself. He's just a working class brother trying to make a living, trying to make some money, trying to take care of his family, and trying to build something in this world and trying to do God's work in this world. And that's something that your white supremacists don't want you to see. They don't want you to see that because they feel if you see the Black man as an enemy, then you will try to destroy him, and you will try to keep their world smooth once you try to destroy him. They'll figure, and what they've done now is they've turned so many Black people against the heterosexual Black man that what's really sad about it is we start seeing the Black man as an enemy in our own community. So instead of us seeing, Black men as a part of the community, we have your Black woman and many of your beta Black males and your children seeing him as an enemy and making efforts to destroy him. And what they're doing now, because this is the culture that your Black woman has learned over the last 50 years, is she's learned this whole culture of no good Black man. And she has taught this culture of no good Black man to her children. And now, instead of her seeing the idea of a Black father as a good thing, she now sees a father as a no good Black man and somebody that needs to be destroyed. And this is something that they want to see, because if you have the heterosexual Black male father destroyed, then that means the family cannot function to compete against your white supremacist institutions or go out here and build businesses that can compete against white supremacist businesses. Because as long as the female is consuming, the children learn how to consume. And this is why we've had 30 years of kids going out here thinking about buying Nike sneakers instead of going out here to create a sneaker that is better than Nike sneakers. Because when you have a father in the home, you're going to have boys who are thinking about building, boys thinking about creating, and that's something that they don't want. And then you're going to have girls who are going to be out here who want to see a model of Black manhood and look for a Black man who is a model just like their father for a boyfriend, and not look to these cartoon characters and these coons that are out here, these thugs and these gangbangers. They're not going to see them as male power, because they're going to see an actual image of Black male power in front of them. And that's what heterosexual Black men represent, especially when they are fathers in the home. They represent an image of Black male power that little Black boys and little Black girls can go out here and see an example of Black manhood that they can follow to the letter for their own lives. So that's another reason why there's a war on heterosexual Black men, because they don't want black boys and black girls following behind black men. Eject, what can we do as black men to combat the harrowing reality that I'm speaking of? Well, what we can do is we have to start unplugging ourselves from the mainstream media. We have to start going out here and supporting new black media, like the books I produce, like Your Bride of Dracula's or Your Temptation of John Haynes. And that's how we start combating it, because this war on heterosexual black men, that's how we start combating it. We have to start changing our perception of self, and we have to start seeing ourselves as valuable, start seeing ourselves as worthy, start seeing ourselves as people who deserve value and deserving worth. And we have to stop looking for white validation and white approval and start looking for God's approval and see value in black. So that's how we combat this war on heterosexual black men, is we have to stop imbibing mainstream media, and we have to start doing things like imbibing new black media. Now, over the last 10 years, what I've been doing is migrating away from your televisions and your mainstream media, and I started creating my own media on the SJS Direct imprint, because I said, if the only way I'm going to get positive images of black men out there and that are heterosexual and normal is to create them myself. And I also go out here and promote those images. And I also promote more positive images like I see in other media, like Mike Williams' Deke Sledge comic strip or your Chris Brown's Omega Black. Whenever I see positive black images, I promote them. And that's how you start breaking away from this this whole psychological warfare, by imbibing positive media. And you also break away from it by changing the way you start seeing yourself, because the more you start imbibing positive images of self and you start surrounding yourself with male figures, you start to change your perception of self. And I also started changing my perception of self by coming here to YouTube. And when I started to watch a video by Dan Freeman made about 10 years ago, it was called The Threatening Black Man. It reminded me a lot of myself and the dangers I ran into, because I had just lost my job at City College. And then I watched Dan Freeman's Threatening Black Man, and that put things into perspective. And then I watched T-Mod of Georgia. He's a conservative pastor. I started seeing perspective from him, brothers like Ringo TV Raw, Iceman, and a lot, Big B Kel, Mr. Superboy. When you start listening, and Professor Black Truth, once you start listening to black men and start seeing black male images and see brothers like your David Carroll and they're starting in the Kwesi 100, you're going to change your perspective. And if more and more brothers start listening to black men out here, what's going to happen is that war that they're trying to wage is going to wind up backfiring, because we're going to see brothers starting to push back, because the more we start seeing value in ourselves, the more we start seeing value in our image, that is going to change the tide. And that's one of the reasons why they have been declaring war on brothers on Black YouTube, is because brothers are starting to have an impact. Like Professor Black Truth has said in his videos, he has said that, look, the new black media has had such power that it has literally changed the way a lot of people are starting to see themselves. And again, that's another reason why we're starting to see this ratcheting up of this effeminization and this homosexualization of black men, is because we're starting to see the impact that new black media is having on all black men. So whenever you start reading a book like A Temptation of John Haynes or A Bride of Dracula, or when you start seeing images like this really changes your perception. I mean, look at this story. You see this black man, he is getting ready to take action to go after this Dracula up here, this white man who has got control over this black woman. So there's a lot going on in this one image. And you start seeing images like this, it's going to change the way you start seeing the world out here, because the mainstream media is not going to push this type of image of a heterosexual black man. And it's not going to present an image like this where you see the black man and the black woman standing side by side with each other, because that runs counter to their narrative, because they want you to see, you know, black men fighting each other. They don't want to see black men working together. Now, in new black media, you're going to get these kind of images, and this is going to change your perception of self. And it's going to open up your eyes to see black folks in a completely different light, because the type of media I produce, get another one out here. Stuff like Man Who Rules the World, the whole idea of a black man saying he rules the world, that's another terrifying thing for white supremacy. So seeing images like this and narratives like this makes people uncomfortable about heterosexual black men. And again, you got your black man and your black woman standing together, getting ready to take on whatever menaces are out there. And seeing these images, they make white supremacists uncomfortable, especially because these images are coming from black men and heterosexual black men showing and telling their stories about self. So this is coming straight from me to you, and this is a thing that makes things uncomfortable for your white supremacists as relates to heterosexual black men, because when we create our own media and create our own narrative, we tell our own story. When we tell our own story, it changes the complete game for everyone. So instead of us talking about being thugs and coons, and can't seem to find. Oh, here it is, right in front of me. Here's another one. Here's A Conversation with Death with John Haynes. Again, another strong masculine male image. And I also have Easting the Sands of Time, which features a black man and a black woman, again, in a loving embrace. And again, these are images that they're not going to put in mainstream media because white supremacy doesn't want you to see this. Now, I wrote this one because the Disney princess story, The Princess and the Frog, gave us a black female princess, but didn't give us a black male prince and did not give us an image of a black man and a black woman coming together. And I wanted to write a story to show you the black man and the black woman coming together in a loving relationship in a princess story. So I wanted to show you the story your Disney didn't want to produce. So this is how you fight back against your war on heterosexual black men, is that we have to start creating our own new black media. And new black media has been, again, making inroads on things. And that's why people are uncomfortable with the idea of black men having control. Because when we control our image, we tell our stories, and our stories refute a lot of the stereotypes that are presented in mainstream media, because they want to present. They started with the demonization of the black man, then that ratcheted up after Oprah and Ricky Lake and these shows came along into the effeminization of the black man in the mid 2000s, and now we are in the stage of the homosexualization of the black man. And what's really sad is we have all these people imbibing a lot of this media, not understanding that there's a counter media, but thank God we do have new black media out here, going out here to fight this narrative and fight this war, because the only people who can look out for heterosexual black men are heterosexual black men. We are the only ones who can go out here and protect ourselves, because without us, there is no seed to grow a black family. And without us, there is no leader to go out here and be the leader to run a black family. And this is the thing that your white supremacy wants to exterminate. And they want to exterminate it by promoting this war on heterosexual black masculinity, war on heterosexual black manhood. And they want to, again, effeminize and homosexualize black men so that they don't reproduce. And then they want your black woman out here deifying and worshiping white men, which is another part of the social engineering, which is why we see all of these images of black women out here with white men. They want to push this idea of heterosexual black women with white men because they want to show the idea that the only way for a woman to find any sort of so-called real love is with a white man, or better love with a white man. And that's all, again, about socially engineering an idea in the black woman's mind that if she goes out here and gets with this white man, she will have this so-called better life. But the actual better life is with that black man, and they don't want you to see that, because if you have that black man out here and he's actually on the same level as white men, it refutes every idea they have about black men. So that's why they go out of their way to create these guys like these thugs and these goons and these socially engineered constructs for black men to follow. Is they don't like the idea of you seeing the idea of a working class father black man taking care of business. So they come up with this thug, this gangsta, and now this gay black man, because they don't like heterosexual black men. Heterosexual black men, they are the ultimate threat to white supremacy, because they represent, again, black masculinity, black manhood, and they also have the seed that can be used to reproduce with black women to create strong black children. So that's the thing that is those are the core reasons why the war has been waged on heterosexual black men, and that's why your heterosexual black man is public enemy number one in America, number one in the West. And Ophidian, what is the role of MGTOW? MGTOW's role is to restore God's natural order, and that's what I believe. That's what I talk about in the Man Crisis. Is the role of MGTOW and Ibmore is to restore God's natural order. That's what I believe God has for MGTOW and Ibmore, because with this gynocentrism and feminism being the culture of the black community, you have to have, it has to rebalance itself. And whenever Satan goes in here and tries to change the order, what's going to happen is the order is going to go back to what it was. Because when it comes down to MGTOW, it's about men rediscovering their manhood, men rediscovering their masculinity, and men taking their definition of manhood and masculinity and establishing it as the standard. Because when it comes down to the feminist, what she wanted to do was change the definition of manhood, but that runs counter to the natural role of the male and the natural role of the female. Because when it comes down to the female, she is not attracted to this socially engineered beta male that your feminists tried to create. And this beta male and this soy and her second and third offspring, the soy boy and not the omega male and the soy boy, they have no masculine energy. They have no masculine traits. And it's literally like dealing with another female. So that's why your females are not attracted to them. And what MGTOW is doing and Ibmore is doing is it gets that man back to the natural masculine state he's in, so that the order can resume. So we may wind up losing a couple of generations overall, but the whole thing is the order is going to go back, because God's order is not going to change. If you try to put aberrations in it, all it's going to do is shake the aberration off and go right back to the way it was. Because in order for the world to go on, you need both men and women working together. And what your feminists try to do is tell the woman she could do things on her own, when in actuality, she was being supported by a group of men in government and big business. And what's happened is the government and big business can't continue to support this woman, because for every dollar they try to get out of this woman, it costs them $1,000. And she creates and generates more debt than they can handle, because all of her student loan debt, all of her credit card debt, all of that debt is making it where There's no way to keep these women taken care of, and they are undermining the entire overall American economy. So that's another thing that has impacted the overall American economy in this campaign to go after heterosexual black men. It has literally destroyed the underpinnings of the entire American economy, and it's destroyed the entire platform of America because these females, they are just rabid consumers, and they are not really producing anything of value. And the men themselves, they are not producing anything of value because your beta male, he's a consumer, your omega male, he's a consumer, and your soy boy is a consumer. So in order to maintain a civilization, you need to have men who continue to build, you need to have men who continue to create, and you need to have a family structure that allows for building and maintaining things like legacies. So we're not having that because your white supremacists wanted to destroy heterosexual black men. They wanted to take the black father out of the home. However, when they tried to take the black father out of the home, they wound up it wound up trickling into the white community because as they put this no-fault divorce to destroy the black father and they put the welfare state, it started to creep into the white community. And that's why we have a man crisis right now in this country, because you don't have any sort of men out here who have male life skills, male survival skills, or male leadership skills. And that's why the country has lost direction. They've gone out here and they've tried to destroy your heterosexual black man. And now that plan to destroy us heterosexual black men is now turning on them and destroying them. And that's what's happening right now to a lot of your society right now. And that's why you have all these guys thinking that Trump can make America great again when he can't make America great again. You have a bunch of males who don't know how to be men. And if you don't have males who don't know how to be men, they can't do anything overall. So the war on heterosexual black men has had major lasting damage on America and the West. And that's why the whole civilization, I believe, is in serious decline, because these racists wanted to have their smooth world where they would go out here and destroy the heterosexual black man. But now it's starting to destroy them because, as Charles Stanley says in his sermons, you reap more than you sow, later than you sow, greater than you sow. And right now, it's looking like white supremacy is getting ready to reap a bitter harvest because they put these seeds in the ground and now they're growing up to become thorns and briars that are starting to impact America 50 years later. I'm going to get ready to wrap the stream up in a couple of minutes because I have someplace to go at about 2 o'clock. But I wanted people to understand this war on heterosexual black men. And this war on heterosexual black men is something that is ongoing, but it's something we as black men out here and black women in America, we have to get ready to get up and fight. And the way you fight this war is not by going out here and taking up fists and arms. It is a culture war. It is a war of values, a war of morals, and it is a war where you have to learn how to think. And it is a war that you learn how to think by imbibing positive media. Mayhem, the next live stream is going to be Friday night, and it's going to be a goth live stream. That one's going to be about introversion in the goth subculture. But I wanted to do this one because it was too much content for one video, and I wanted people to really be able to understand the complexities of this war on heterosexual black men. And this is a war that is ongoing. It's been ongoing for 50 years, and we're right in the middle of it. And it's, again, a culture war. It's a war we see in our media. It's a war we see in the images in our media. And it's a war where we're just finally starting to see a lot of brothers starting to take charge of things. And it was one of those things I saw back in the 90s when I started to see the NWA and all this thug culture come up. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to go out here and write positive stories about the African American experience. I do have another live stream plan that isn't goth. That's going to be next week, but I usually just do two because they just get me. They're a lot of work to do, and I want to make sure that the live stream is solid. But I will be doing another one next week on Wednesday, and it'll be another one. But it's going to be another one. I might be another one on Black men's issues because I wanted to do, but I wanted to do the goth one because I promised the kids. Yeah, it's going to be 12 o'clock, Ja Rules. It's going to be 12 o'clock. But I promised the people in the scene that I wanted to do one about introversion, and I want to get that one out. But this one was one I wanted to do because there is a war on heterosexual Black men, and I wanted people to know about that war. And I also wanted them to know about the books that I've produced that show them positive images of Black men, positive images of Black male and female relationships, like your Easting, The Sands of Time, or your Temptation of John Haynes, or your Conversation with Death, Escape from Transylvania, and Bride of Dracula, and Man Who Rules the World, because I wanted you to see that there were books that featured positive images of Black men, positive images of heterosexual Black men, and positive images of heterosexual Black manhood and Black masculinity. And I also want you to understand how they relate to the man crisis here in America. You can get all of those books on Amazon.com in paperback and ebook. And one of the things you have to understand about this war on heterosexual Black men is that the greatest way you can fight it is by feeding your mind positive media. And that positive media is going to give you a positive image of self. And again, that's one of the reasons why I write all the books in the SJS Direct imprint that feature John Haynes, is to show you that positive image of Black manhood and masculinity. And that's why I talk about other positive images of Black manhood and masculinity, like Mike Williams' Deke Sledge or Chris Brown's Omega Black, because when you feed your mind healthy images of Black manhood and masculinity, what that does is it gives you a positive image of self. It gives you a positive image of self-worth, and it gives you, confidence in being a Black man. And you also reinforce that by being involved and interacting with other positive brothers and sisters out here. That also helps you, because one of the things that helped me was having a relationship with my older brother and my father. Those things help me start to see a positive image of myself as a Black man, and start to see positiveness in being a heterosexual Black man. And that also helps you understand a value in self. And that's how you also combat this war in against heterosexual Black men, because this war is about getting you to imbibe ideas that are dysfunctional and imbibe ideas that are destructive to yourself as a heterosexual Black man. Those are the ideas they want you, because what they want you to see yourself as is a thug, a simp, a beta male. They don't want you to see yourself as a man or actualize your potential as a man. So that's one of the things, that's why they're declaring war on heterosexual Black men, because if Black men go out here and compete, destroy themselves, they can't compete against white supremacy. Thank you, NYC Evolved 88, for the donation. I really appreciate it. And that's what they don't want you to see. They don't want you to see yourself as an actualized Black man, because an actualized Black man is one that's going to go out here and compete. He's going to take himself to the next level, and he's going to find himself actualizing his potential as he reaches his prime. I'm going to wrap up the stream right now. I thank everybody for coming out to the stream, and I really appreciate everybody taking the time to watch the stream. The next stream is going to be Friday night at 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock. That one is going to make up about introversion in the goth subculture. And if you really want to actualize your potential as a Black man, you can watch many of the Black YouTubers like myself, Mr. Superboy, Professor Black Truth, Ringo TV Raw, Mad Voodoo Man, the Iceman, and Advice Show. Those are brothers who are going to help you get yourself right. And you can further reinforce it by going out here and buying. And you can watch Sandman too and other MGTOW channels and Ibmore channels. And Obsidian Radio, you can watch his stuff. And all that stuff is going to help change your perception of self. It's going to help you get a better understanding of self. And you can also get that from SJS Direct books like The Man Crisis and the fiction of the SJS Direct imprint. All these books, once you read these and start watching positive new black media, it's going to change your perspective of self and get you a better understanding of self. And it's going to get you focused on being a man ready to actualize his potential. I thank you again for coming out to the stream. I thank you guys for coming to donate to my channel. And I'm hoping you pick up the books and watch the videos because they'll help you get yourself to the next level. That's all I have to say for this stream. I hope you come back for Fridays.